Past performance is not a reliable indicator of future results. But if past performance is all that we have to go off, doesn't that mean that we're just sat here then hoping that the past repeats itself? Well, not quite. There are reasons why the stock market and investors in the stock market can believe that it should go up in value over time, and not just rely on what's happened in the past.
What you just watched was a clip from our free investing course called Index Funds for Beginners, where Damien from Damien Talks Money talks about this idea, this theory, this argument that can be made that you could generally expect the stock market to go up in value over time. But is it true? Is the stock market designed to grow?
The stock market closed out the week with the worst day of the year so far.
Hopefully we'll close at a new high today. We've been waiting for days to see if that'll happen.
Good evening. Today is Black Monday, the day the Dow dropped more than 500 points, the day the Dow dropped more than 22%.
To continue. By the way, you think it has legs, real legs, like not just next year, but maybe the year after?
There are many arguments that suggest the stock market should go up long term by design, because we as human beings have designed it that way. But there might also be a whole load of factors outside the world of the stock market that could contribute to the long term growth of the stock market indirectly. The most simple of these ideas to understand is with inflation. Inflation pushes prices up over time. Eventually all things will cost more money than they did in the past. You're not getting a Freddo for 5p now or any time in the future. And houses cost a lot more than the 200 quid your great grandfather paid for his. But then you do get paid a lot more than the 2 shillings and 3 chocolate buttons that he used to earn. Because inflation drives up all prices eventually, you could argue that it will drive the stock market up as well. Companies generate more revenue simply as a result of prices being higher. That doesn't mean they make more profit. That's a different discussion for another day. Let's keep things as simple as possible here. Take a look at this graph showing UK inflation, or more specifically the Consumer Price Index, compared to the value of the FTSE 100, the 100 largest publicly traded companies in the UK. There's also this graph comparing US inflation and the S&P 500 going all the way back to the 1950s, now using a logarithmic scale. What you can see with both graphs is that while inflation and stock markets aren't directly correlated, they both just trend upwards and to the right over the long term at a fairly similar rate. And here's the World Consumer Price Index from the IMF tracked against the MSCI World Index just for good measure. Other similar arguments can be made with things like growing populations. The more people live in a country, the more potential workers there are, the more potential productivity there is, more economic activity happens as a result, and that keeps driving everything up and to the right, which is our favourite direction. And as GDP grows, stock markets will often grow as well. But while there is a general long-term trend around these things, there are plenty of specific examples where they weren't true, and these are both over short-term and over longer periods of time as well. Japan in the 90s saw their GDP rise by 1.3% per year between 1990 and 2000, but the Nikkei 225 index actually fell by around 75% during a similar period of time. Zimbabwe's stock market took a beating after their inflation rates rose to an astounding 24,000% in 2007 and didn't fully recover until over a decade later. As we've shown so far that inflation and the stock market generally have a positive correlation, you might think investors in the Zimbabwean stock market got rich as a result of the 24,000% hyperinflation, but the reality was the total opposite. On paper, stock market investments generated enormous returns, as the Zimbabwe Industrial Index went from around 2,000 in 1990 to over 7 quadrillion by 2008. However, when you converted that to US dollars, investors had lost nearly everything, about 99% in real terms from 2000 to 2008. So while natural influences like inflation, population, and economic growth can potentially grow the stock market, it's never a guarantee, and there are many other factors to consider as well. One solid, much more concrete reason for arguing that the stock market is designed to grow is something that's written into our rules and regulations for businesses. In Section 172 of the Companies Act in 2006, it states that a director of a company must act in the way to promote the success of the company for the benefit of its members as a whole. So, in the UK, as well as other countries around the world, while the companies that you're investing into are aiming to make as much money as possible, they must also act in the best interests of their shareholders. And this is known as Fiduciary Duty. It's literally written into the law that companies must consider shareholders when making decisions for the company. And while increasing the share price or making money for your shareholders isn't an explicit rule, it can be argued that it has to be taken into account long term. You can't just intentionally drive a company's value down to zero, which might be why Elon Musk took Twitter private before destroying it. Stepping away from the legal duties that these companies have towards their shareholders, you could also argue that these businesses, especially the very successful ones, are run by some of the most intelligent and innovative people on the planet, and their only aim is to keep growing. When you're investing into a company, you're putting your money into an asset that is specifically designed to grow. Whether they do or not is completely down to the performance of the company, but as a hypothetical model, they are all trying to grow as much as possible. And they're run by people addicted to growth and only ever want more than they already have. It's a bit sad really, but we could potentially benefit from it. Now, if you were to only invest into individual shares, picking specific companies that you think will do well, then you'd be relying solely on those companies performing well in order for you to make a profit. And you could argue that with the amount of well-established companies that eventually fail, the stock market is not designed to grow. But when you invest into an index fund, you're essentially buying an entire market, meaning you're gaining exposure to all businesses in one investment. If you don't understand index funds, you can check out our free course in the description. It's where the clips from Damien at the start were taken from. The indexes that these index funds are tracking are also updated multiple times per year. And what this does is it takes the businesses in the stock market that have started to perform worse and replaces them with better performing businesses at that time. So say Apple's stock price somehow plummeted, but Pear's stock price flew up. Pear would replace Apple in the index, and you'd now be investing partly into Pear instead of Apple, as well as hundreds or thousands of other businesses. This means that you're constantly putting your money into companies that are thriving and getting rid of companies that aren't. And it means the stock market as a whole is tilted towards successful and growing firms, with indexes pruning off their dying branches in the hope that it keeps the rest of it flowering nicely. And this form of natural selection keeps the aggregate market healthier and on an upward path. However, there's nothing to say that every company in an index couldn't start to struggle if there was an economic crisis. But if there was an economic crisis, or more likely when there is an economic crisis, you'll typically see governments doing everything they can to protect businesses and the economy. Governments will generally aim for pro-growth policies, setting rules and regulations specifically designed to drive up the value of the economy and ultimately the stock market as well. They also use things like quantitative easing, or the printing of money, to support the economy in troubled times, and this money often flows into the hands of the big corporations. It might seem a bit questionable to point out that governments probably want big businesses to succeed more than they want you, yes, you watching right now, to succeed, but this isn't the only supporting argument that could make you feel a little bit uneasy. For example, there are psychological and behavioural factors that can account for quite a bit. FOMO, or the fear of missing out, can play its part, but also the fact that people are told to put their money into the stock market for their futures. Pension companies put your money into the markets, we're encouraged to put more money in there ourselves. Governments put money into the market, we get tax breaks for doing so. It's all a bit Ponzi-like. If everyone keeps putting their money in, prices will go up. And the long-term market optimism combined with this Ponzi-like setup becomes a self-fulfilling thing where more and more people end up putting their money in. Now, obviously we're not saying that the stock market is a Ponzi scheme, but it would be foolish to ignore the fact that if more people put their money in, prices will go up. The difference is that with a Ponzi scheme, you only earn money if more people put money in, and you only earn good returns if you get in early. And if you get in late, it's basically impossible not to lose. Amazingly, there are many more arguments that can be made to support the theory that the stock market is designed to go up. However, there are also arguments that can be made that say, no, this is definitely not designed to go up, so let's be responsible and talk about some of those things now. For example, what happens if growth and innovation starts to plateau or even decline? Surely there's only so much we can innovate before it all starts to level off. Take new iPhones as an example. The average person can barely even notice the added features on a new iPhone these days. In years gone by, we went from things like pressing buttons to pressing a touchscreen, from having no camera to a camera, and these days we're going from turning off Siri to turning off Apple Intelligence. Back in 2023, many people suggested that we were actually reaching a point of stagnation, where innovation is becoming harder and harder. But if you take a look at what's happened since then, with the rise of AI, you'll see the complete opposite. The S&P 500 has increased by nearly 30% since then, while the FTSE 100 has risen by roughly 28%. I'm not saying this is definitely going to continue, but at the point where people thought that growth was becoming impossible, there was still huge growth lying ahead in the near future. No one knows what the future holds in terms of innovation or new revolutionary products or services, but from the data and history we do have, there has always been something that starts to change the way the world works. Businesses that you might never have heard of 20 or 25 years ago are now amongst some of the biggest in the world. Just look at Nvidia and Tesla, who have both grown to be dominant forces in the market through their technological advances. But is there a genuine argument that we might reach the point where innovation becomes impossible? No, seriously, is there? Can someone who's more intelligent than me please tell me? If you look far enough into the future, and I'm talking hundreds or thousands of years here, there are further limitations we will inevitably face on things like resources and land. We're making great strides in renewable energy, but we still consume an obscene amount of fossil fuels each year. In 2023, the US alone consumed 77.2 quadrillion British thermal units, which is incomprehensible for a number of reasons. These fuels still play a major part in business and seemingly will do for many years to come, so what happens when they run out? Don't look at me, I haven't got a clue, but you could argue that it will have a huge impact on the growth of the stock market, and these are inevitable things that are going to happen, so how can something be designed to grow with such definite limitations lying in the future? You also have more basic things like land to worry about, as there's only so much we can expand until there's no space left. So how will that affect things? Or will we be investing into businesses that are based on Jupiter by then? In addition to all of this, there's also the fact that some popular investing strategies don't really aid the growth of the stock market at all. In fact, they actually do the complete opposite. If you're an active trader that likes to trade and short individual stocks, you might actually be preying on the downfall of a company in order to make some money for yourself. So if investors can profit off of a company's failure, and if people can bet against you, and they will, you could argue that there's a whole world of reasons why the stock market won't go up. Because while lots of people want the market to go up and try to make it happen, other people want it to go down and will therefore act accordingly. In fact, they couldn't care less which way the market goes as long as their bank balance goes up. Not only do you have these investors that are preying on a company's downfall, but you also have shareholders that might only have their own interests at heart. And that's fine, by the way. Most people are investing because they want to generate a return for themselves, not for other people. But when a company pays its shareholders dividends, there is no guarantee that those dividends will be reinvested into the stock market, meaning they could just be taken as additional income by the investor. This is an investing strategy used by many people and serves as a way to create an alternate income stream, which is a totally understandable thing to do, but it could slow down the growth of the stock market when that money is taken out compared to being reinvested back in. Coming back to the whole Ponzi thing, you also have the greater fool theory, which really just relies on there being someone else willing to pay a higher price than you did so that you can make a return. What happens if you're the last one holding the bag? The main counter-argument to this, though, is that even if the company's stock price stagnates or declines, you still own a revenue-producing asset. You can be paid dividends by a company regardless of where the price is at. I think this analogy from Damien sums it up perfectly.
If I buy a bar of gold today and have it delivered to my house and keep it for 10 years, in a decade's time, what will I have? Well, I'll still have exactly the same bar of gold. The gold bar might be worth more, prices of gold have tended to increase in the past, but I still have exactly the same bar of gold. A bar of gold is not a revenue-generating asset, but when you invest in the stock market and you buy into companies, the aim of those companies is to return value to the shareholders, either through the increase of the share price or through the distribution of dividends, which is profits from the business being paid out to the investors. A company is an income-producing asset. A bar of gold just sits there and looks nice.
So on the one hand, you have investors that might be looking to solely make profit for themselves, even at the detriment of the stock market. And on the other, you could argue that it's still designed to grow even with these strategies in place, as the companies that make up the stock market are all revenue generating assets. But in terms of a definitive answer to the question of whether the stock market is designed to grow, I think we can confidently say that the stock market has a lot of things going for it, both with natural causes and with the way that things are set up, that should help push prices up in the right direction long term. However, just because these things are there, and just because there are things that can help, and just because it's consistently gone up over an extremely long period of time, it doesn't mean that prices will go in the right direction in the future. The stock market is a volatile place, and there are lots of reasons why it might decline both short and long term. All investments have risk, and you can lose money when investing.